Kim Juwoo's hands were sweating as she walked through the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council space station. The metal floor seemed to shine under her feet, and the ceiling stretched so high she had to crane her neck to see it. She was part of Earth's first delegation to the Council, and everything felt too big, too clean, and too perfect. Dr. Han Daejung led their small group, his gray hair neat and his back straight. He had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Behind him walked 5 other humans, including Juwoo, each chosen for their special skills. Juwoo was there because she could learn languages faster than almost anyone else on Earth. The aliens walking past them looked different from anything in human movies or books. Some floated instead of walking. Others had too many eyes or arms that bent in strange ways. But what caught Juwoo's attention most were the Shirani. The Shirani looked almost human, except for their pale blue skin and silver hair. They were the most powerful species in the Council, and they knew it. Every time they passed the human group, they smiled in a way that wasn't friendly at all. "This way, please," said a small floating robot in perfect English. It led them into a huge round room. Hundreds of alien species sat in rising circles, like a giant theater, with the Shirani taking up the best seats at the front. Dr. Han stepped forward to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, we come from Earth seeking." "Earth," interrupted a Shirani leader named Ril. His voice was smooth like silk but cold as ice. "The planet that only learned to leave its atmosphere 100 years ago. The one that still uses chemical rockets." Some aliens in the crowd laughed. Juwoo felt her face grow hot with anger, but she kept quiet and watched. The Shirani wore beautiful robes covered in strange writing. As Ril moved, she noticed how the symbols seemed to flow like water. Something about them looked familiar, but she couldn't say why. "We may be young," Dr. Han said calmly, "but we have much to offer. Our art, our music, your art." Another Shirani stood up. "We have been making art for 50,000 years. What could you teach us?" More laughter filled the room. But Juwoo wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at a large banner hanging behind the Shirani seats. The symbols on it were different from the ones on their robes. They were older, more angular. And now she was sure she had seen something like them before. While Dr. Han tried to talk about Earth's achievements, Juwoo pulled out her tablet and quickly took pictures. She had studied ancient writing systems all her life, and these symbols tickled something in her memory. The meeting went on for 3 more hours. The Shirani kept finding new ways to make humans sound stupid and young. Other aliens mostly stayed quiet, but their faces showed they agreed with the Shirani. At the end, the Council said they would consider Earth's request to join. Everyone knew that meant no. Back in their quarters, Dr. Han looked tired. "Well, that could have gone better," he said, trying to smile. But Juwoo barely heard him. She was already sending messages to her friend Lee Yunha back on Earth. Yunha was a historian who specialized in Earth's oldest civilizations. "Look at these pictures," Juwoo wrote. "Tell me if they remind you of anything." She waited, her heart beating fast. 5 minutes later, Yunha's answer made her sit up straight. "Those symbols, they look like writing we found in ruins under the Pacific Ocean. Ruins that are over 100,000 years old." "Juwoo, where did you see these?" Juwoo looked out the window at the endless stars. For the first time since arriving, she smiled. The Shirani thought humans were young and stupid, but maybe they didn't know their own history as well as they thought they did. She opened a new file on her tablet and began to work. The Shirani had laughed at humans today, but soon they would learn that sometimes the youngest child in the room can teach the oldest some surprising lessons. 3 days had passed since the difficult meeting with the Galactic Council. Juwoo hadn't slept much. Her small room in the space station was covered with pictures and notes. She had put them all over the walls, and even on the floor. Lee Yunha's face appeared on Juwoo's computer screen. Even through the space video call, Juwoo could see the excitement in her friend's eyes. "I've checked the symbols 5 times now," Yunha said, holding up her own notes. It's not just similar to the underwater ruins. Some of the symbols are exactly the same. Juwu nodded. But the Shirani don't write them quite right. Look. She held up 2 pictures side by side for the camera. In the old Earth ruins, this mark has 3 clear lines. But in Shirani writing, it's all curved and messy. It's like they forgot the right way to draw it. Like when someone copies something without understanding it, Yumna said. She pushed her glasses up her nose, thinking hard. But Juwu, this is huge. The underwater ruins are older than any human civilization we know about. If the Shirani are using the same writing, then either they visited Earth 100,000 years ago, Juwu finished, or both their writing and ours came from somewhere else. A knock at the door made both women jump. Juwu quickly turned off the screen. Come in. It was Park Min-ho, one of the other members of the Earth delegation. He was a quantum archaeologist, someone who used advanced science to study very old things. His eyes went wide when he saw all the pictures on the walls. I was coming to ask if you wanted dinner, but... He walked closer to look at the symbols. Wait, is that from the Pacific ruins? Why are you comparing it to Shirani writing? Juwu told him what she and Yumna had found. Min-ho listened carefully, then pulled out his own tablet. I think I can help, he said. My team created a program that can read the energy left in very old objects, like fingerprints that tell us who touched something and when. He looked at Juwu with a serious face. If we could scan some old Shirani artifacts, we might be able to tell where they really came from. Juwu felt her heart beat faster. But how? The Shirani barely let us near them, let alone their sacred objects. Leave that to me, said a new voice. They turned to see Dr. Han standing in the doorway. He smiled. I couldn't help overhearing. And I think I know how we can get close to their artifacts. He came into the room and closed the door. The Shirani are proud. Too proud. Tomorrow, they're having a big ceremony to show off their oldest treasures to the council. They invited us to come and see how ancient their culture is compared to ours. Min-ho grinned. They want to make us feel small by showing us their old things. But they might actually be showing us proof that they're connected to Earth. Juwu finished. She felt excited, but also a little scared. If we're wrong about this, we'll look like fools. And if we're right? Dr. Han asked. If we're right, Yunha's voice came from the computer. Juwu had turned it back on. Then the Shirani's whole idea of being better than everyone else is built on a lie. They're not the oldest and wisest. They just found someone else's writing and pretended it was theirs. Dr. Han nodded slowly. We'll need to be very careful how we handle this. If we embarrass them too much, they might turn the whole council against Earth forever. Then we don't embarrass them, Juwu said firmly. We help them understand the truth. Maybe they did come from Earth long ago. Maybe we're all connected. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's something amazing. They spent the next few hours making plans. None of them got much sleep that night. Tomorrow would change everything, if they were right, and if they were careful. What they didn't know was that someone else was very interested in their discovery. Outside in the hallway, a young Shirani scholar named Kay had heard every word. And instead of reporting them, she was thinking about the strange dreams she'd had all her life, about a blue planet with oceans that went on forever. The Shirani Great Hall was the most beautiful room Juwu had ever seen. The ceiling looked like flowing water made of light, and the walls were covered in ancient tablets with the mysterious writing. Hundreds of aliens from the council had gathered to see the Shirani's sacred artifacts. Min-ho stood next to Juwu, pretending to admire a display case. But really, he was scanning everything with his quantum archaeology tools, hidden in what looked like a normal tablet computer. The energy readings are strange, he whispered to Juwu. These tablets, they're giving off the same kind of energy as the ruins under Earth's ocean. Before Juwu could answer, a tall Shirani walked up to them. It was Ka, though they didn't know her name yet. She was younger than most Shirani they had seen, and her silver hair was cut short in a way that made other Shirani frown at her. You see it too, don't you? Kay asked quietly. The mistakes in the writing. Jiwoo and Minho froze. Had they been caught? But Kay's face showed no anger, only curiosity and something else. Hope. I don't know what you mean, Jiwoo said carefully. Kay looked around to make sure no one was listening. The sacred texts. The holy writing. It's wrong. The lines are curved when they should be straight. The angles are wrong. It's like someone copied a copy of a copy over and over, until the true shape was lost. Minho's eyes went wide. You've studied this. In secret, Kay said. The other Shirani don't want to hear about mistakes in the sacred writing, but I found old records from thousands of years ago. They show the writing used to be different. More like. She stopped and looked straight at Jiwoo. More like what you found on your world. Just then, Ril, the Shirani leader from before, stepped onto a raised platform. His voice boomed through the hall. Honored guests, today we show you the proof of Shirani greatness. These holy tablets are 50,000 years old. They prove that we were building a great civilization when most species were still learning to make fire. The crowd clapped politely. But now Jiwoo could see what she hadn't noticed before. Many of the other aliens looked tired of Shirani bragging. They were just too polite, or too afraid, to say anything. Kay, Jiwoo whispered, making a decision. Would you like to see something interesting? She pulled out her tablet and showed Kay the pictures from Earth's underwater ruins. Kay's blue skin seemed to get even paler. This is impossible, she whispered. These carvings are exactly like the oldest pictures in my great-grandmother's books. The really old ones that nobody can read anymore. She looked at Jiwoo with tears in her eyes. Where did you find these? On Earth, Minho said. In ruins that are 100,000 years old. Twice as old as your tablets here. Kay sat down hard in a nearby chair. All my life, I've had dreams about a blue planet. About great cities under the ocean. The other Shirani say I'm strange for thinking about such things. But she touched the picture on Jiwoo's tablet. This is what I saw in my dreams. Ril was still talking, proudly showing off tablets and artifacts. But now, the three people in the corner weren't listening. They were too busy sharing information, comparing notes, and slowly understanding a truth that would change everything. Our oldest stories, Kay said, tell us we came from far away. That we found our current home after a great journey. But nobody knows where we came from before that. I think we might know now, Jiwoo said softly. Minho's tablet beeped. The scan was complete. He looked at the results, and his face turned serious. The material in these tablets, he said, it's from Earth. They're made from stone that can only be found in one place, deep under the Pacific Ocean. The truth was now clear, but what would they do with it? And more importantly, how would the proud Shirani react when they learned that their holy writing came from the very humans they looked down on? Back in their quarters, Jiwoo, Minho, and their new friend Kay sat surrounded by holographic displays. Dr. Han had joined them, along with Song Hyerin, who had just arrived from Earth. Hyerin was an expert in ancient languages, and her eyes were shining as she studied the symbols. It's amazing, Hyerin said, moving her hands through the floating images. The Shirani holy writings aren't just similar to the underwater ruins. They're exactly the same language. But they're reading them all wrong. What do you mean? Kay asked. She had been nervous about helping the humans at first, but her desire to know the truth was stronger than her fear. Hyerin pointed to a series of symbols. See how the Shirani read this as a prayer about stars. That's not what it means at all. It's a navigation guide. A map. She looked at Kay gently. A map showing the way from Earth to where the Shirani live now. Kay's hands were shaking. Then, our ancestors really did come from Earth. We're not the original writers of the holy texts. No, Jiwoo said softly. But that doesn't make your people less special. Think about it. Your ancestors made an amazing journey across space. They survived and built a new home. That's something to be proud of. Dr. Han, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The question is, how do we tell the council? The Shirani leaders like Ril won't want to hear this. Maybe we don't have to tell them, Minho said. Everyone looked at him. Maybe we can show them. He pressed some buttons on his tablet, and a new image appeared in the air. It showed energy patterns from the Shirani tablets. The quantum scans show that these tablets still hold echoes of the original writers, he explained. If we can activate those echoes, we might be able to hear their voices. Hiren finished, getting excited. The actual voices of the people who wrote these texts. Is that possible? Dr. Han asked. Minho nodded. With K's help, yes. The tablets are sacred objects. Only Shirani are allowed to touch them. But if K can get us access. They all looked at K. She sat straight and lifted her chin. I'll help. My people deserve to know the truth about where we come from. They spent the next few hours making plans. Hiren worked on translating more of the ancient language, while Minho fine-tuned his quantum scanning device. Jiwoo and K went through old Shirani stories, finding more and more connections to Earth. Look at this, K said, pointing to an old picture. We always thought this was a drawing of our first home. But it's not, is it? It's a drawing of Earth. Jiwoo looked at the image. It showed a blue planet with white clouds and large oceans. Yes, that's Earth, exactly as it would have looked 100,000 years ago. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Everyone froze. Quickly, they turned off the holograms and hid their work. It was Ril. The Shirani leader walked in, his silver robes flowing around him. His eyes moved across the room, taking in everything. I hope I'm not interrupting anything, he said smoothly. I just wanted to remind our Earth guests that tomorrow is the final council, where we decide if Earth is worthy to join us. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. I'm sure you'll find the decision educational. After he left, everyone let out their breath. He suspects something, Dr. Han said. Then we need to work faster, Ju replied. K, can you get us into the sacred chamber tonight? K nodded. Yes, but we'll have to be very careful. If we're caught. We won't be caught, Hiren said firmly. And tomorrow, when Ril tries to humiliate Earth again, he'll learn that the youngest species in the room might know more about his holy writings than he does. As night fell on the space station, they gathered their equipment and prepared for what would either be their greatest discovery or their biggest mistake. The sacred chamber was dark, except for the soft blue light coming from the ancient tablets. Cad led the group through shadows, past sleeping guard robots, and into the heart of the Shirani holy place. We have 1 hour, she whispered. The guards will check this room at midnight. Minho quickly set up his scanning equipment while Hiren and Ju studied the largest tablet. Dr. Han stood watch by the door. They all wore soft shoes that didn't make any noise when they walked. This is it, Hiren said, pointing to the huge stone tablet. This is the oldest one. The writing here is almost perfect, just like in the underwater ruins. Minho pointed his scanner at the tablet. Blue light moved over the stone like water. Starting the deep scan now. Everyone be very quiet. At first, nothing happened. Then they heard it, a soft humming coming from the stone. The symbols began to glow with a pale light. It's working, Minho whispered excitedly. The quantum echoes are getting stronger. Just a few more minutes. Suddenly, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Everyone froze. Hide, Ka hissed, pushing them behind a large display case. The door opened. Ril walked in, followed by 2 other Shirani leaders. They were talking quietly. The humans are up to something, Ril was saying. They spend too much time looking at the holy writings, and that troublemaker K has been helping them. What can they do? Another leader asked. They're primitive. They can barely travel through space. I don't trust them, Ril said. Tomorrow, at the final council, we'll make sure they're rejected. We can't risk having them around, asking questions about the old writings. Behind the display case, Juwu held her breath. Next to her, Minho's scanner was still running. The humming from the tablet was getting louder. The Serani leaders stopped talking. "Do you hear that?" Rill asked. Before anyone could move, the large tablet blazed with bright light. A voice filled the room, deep, clear, and speaking in the ancient language. But it wasn't speaking the prayers the Serani knew. Hiren's eyes went wide. She could understand the words. "This is the final recording," the voice said in the ancient tongue. "We leave these markers for those who follow. Earth is no longer safe for us. The great waters rise. We must find a new home among the stars. To our children's children, never forget where you came from. The blue planet will always be your first home." The voice faded. The light died down. In the darkness, no one moved. Then Rill's voice came, shaking with anger. "Who's there? Show yourselves." Dr. Han stood up first. The others followed. Kay was the last to step out, her head held high. "What have you done?" Rill demanded. "You've damaged a holy relic." "No," Juwu said firmly. "We've helped it tell its true story, the story your people forgot." "These tablets," Minho added, "they're not just religious texts. They're a message from your ancestors. Your real ancestors. From Earth." "Lies," Rill shouted, but the other Serani leaders were looking at the tablet strangely. "Is it lies?" Kay asked. She walked to the tablet and touched it gently. "Or is it the truth we've been afraid to see? Our oldest stories talk about a journey from another world. Our most ancient dreams show us a blue planet. We are not the oldest civilization. Rill, we are the children who forgot their parents." One of the other leaders stepped forward. "The final council meets in 6 hours. If what you say is true, we can prove it," Hiren said. "Let us show everyone, not to shame the Serani, but to reunite two peoples who have been separated for too long." Rill looked like he wanted to argue more, but the other leaders were nodding. The truth was too strong to deny now. As they left the sacred chamber, Juwu looked back at the tablet. Tomorrow would change everything. But first, they had to get ready for the most important meeting in human and Serani history. The final council chamber was packed. Every species in the Galactic Council had come to see Earth's petition rejected. The room buzzed with quiet talk and soft lights from hundreds of different beings. Juwu stood with her team, feeling her heart beat fast. Dr. Han looked calm, but she could see his hands shaking slightly. Hiren kept checking her notes, while Minho made sure his equipment was ready one last time. Rill took his place at the speaking platform. His silver robes seemed to shine brighter than usual, but his face was tight with worry. The other Serani leaders sat behind him, their faces serious. "Honored members of the council," Rill began, "we are here to decide if Earth should join us. They are young. Their technology is simple. Their culture is—" "If I may speak," Dr. Han said, standing up. His voice was strong and clear. Rill frowned. "This is not the proper time." "Let them speak," said one of the other Serani leaders. "They have earned that right." Rill had to step aside. Dr. Han walked to the platform, but then he did something surprising. He turned and waved Juwu forward. "My colleague has something important to share," he said. Juwu walked to the platform. Her legs felt weak, but her mind was clear. She looked out at the huge crowd of aliens. Many of them had laughed at humans before. None of them were laughing now. "Honored Council," she began, "we've discovered something amazing. Something that connects humans and Serani in a way nobody expected." She nodded to Minho, who started his equipment. The large screens around the room lit up with images. The underwater ruins from Earth, the Serani tablets, the ancient writing that appeared in both places. Juwu explained everything they had found, using simple words that everyone could understand. Then came the moment she had practiced all night. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak in the ancient language, the true, original way it was meant to be spoken. The effect was immediate. The Shirani in the room sat up straight, their eyes wide. Some of them started crying. They had never heard their holy language spoken this way before, with all the proper sounds and rhythms that had been lost over time. "These are your ancestors' words," Ju said, still speaking the ancient tongue. "They left Earth when the great waters rose, but they left us messages. They wanted their children, you, the Shirani, to remember where you came from." Ril tried to interrupt, but now other Shirani were standing up. They began to speak too, trying to copy the proper way Ju spoke the words. The whole room filled with the sound of the ancient language coming back to life. Kai stepped forward then. "My people," she said clearly, "we are not less special because we came from Earth. We are more special because we survived such a great journey. We didn't forget everything. In our dreams, in our oldest stories, we kept small pieces of the truth." One of the oldest council members, a beam made of shifting colors, floated forward. "This changes much," it said. "The Shirani are not the oldest civilization here. They are part of Earth's legacy, just as humans are." Both peoples kept different parts of the ancient knowledge, Hiron added. The Shirani kept the writing but forgot its true meaning. Humans forgot the writing but kept living in the world that created it. The council chamber was quiet for a moment. Then something wonderful happened. A young Shirani child, sitting with her parents, started to sing an old Shirani song. But now, hearing the true ancient language, everyone could understand the words. It was a song about a blue planet, about oceans and skies, and the long journey through the stars. Soon other Shirani joined in. The song filled the chamber, and this time, there were no differences between humans and Shirani. They were all the children of Earth, finding each other again after 100,000 years. 3 days after the final council meeting, the space station was very different. Where Shirani had once looked down on humans, now they stopped to talk with them. Many wanted to learn the true way to speak their ancient language. Ju sat in a new office, much bigger than her old room. The walls showed moving pictures of Earth's oceans and the underwater ruins. Kay sat across from her, helping to translate more of the old tablets. "Look at this," Kay said, pointing to a screen. "This isn't just writing about leaving Earth. It's instructions for something." Her blue fingers traced the symbols. "Something about moving through space without ships." Ju leaned forward. "That's impossible. How could they?" The door opened, and Dr. Han walked in with 3 Shirani elders. These weren't the proud leaders like Ril. They were teachers and historians who had always questioned the old ways. "The council has made its decision," Dr. Han said, smiling. "Earth is not only accepted, we're being given a special place in the council, as keepers of the old knowledge." One of the Shirani elders stepped forward. She was very old, with pale blue skin that had turned almost white. "We have much to learn from each other," she said. "Our pride kept us from seeing the truth for too long." "What about Ril?" Ju asked. She hadn't seen the former Shirani leader since the final council. "He has stepped down from leadership," Kay said. "But this morning, he asked to join our research team. He wants to learn the truth about our history." Just then, Minho burst into the room, his face excited. "You need to see this," he said. "Hiron found something in the quantum scans. Something big." They all hurried to the science lab. Hiron was there, working with both human and Shirani scientists. The air was full of floating images showing energy patterns from the ancient tablets. "We were right about the tablets being messages," Hiron said. "But they're more than that. They're keys." She pressed some buttons, and new patterns appeared. "The ancestors left us technology, amazing technology. But it only works when humans and Shirani work together." "What do you mean?" asked one of the elders. Minho pointed to a pattern that looked like flowing water. "See this? It's a DNA pattern. Half human, half Shirani. The old technology needs both types of people to make it work." "They planned this," Ju said softly, 100,000 years ago. They knew that someday their children would find each other again. They made sure we would need each other. News of the discovery spread quickly through the station. In the main hall, humans and Shirani gathered together, looking at the new information. Some cried, some laughed, some just stood quietly, thinking about their shared past. A small Shirani child tugged at Juwoo's sleeve. "Can you teach me the old words?" she asked. "The true way to say them." "Of course," Juwoo said, kneeling down. "But you know what's even better? You can teach me things too. About how your people kept the old stories alive all these years." More children gathered around them, both human and Shirani. They sat in a circle, sharing words and stories from both worlds. Above them, the space station's windows showed the stars. The same stars their ancestors had traveled through so long ago. In her new office later that night, Juwoo wrote in her diary, "Today we learned that being advanced doesn't mean forgetting your past. It means understanding where you came from and using that knowledge to build a better future. The Shirani aren't laughing at humans anymore. Instead, we're all learning to laugh together, as family should." Outside her window, Earth shone like a blue jewel in the darkness. Somewhere deep in its oceans, the first words of this story were still waiting to be found. But now, after so long, those words were finally being spoken again, by voices both human and Shirani together. 1 month after the great discovery, Juwoo stood on the surface of the Shirani homeworld for the first time. The sky was purple, and 3 moons hung in the air like silver coins. Behind her, a group of human scientists were setting up equipment near an ancient temple. "It's strange," Kay said, standing next to her. "All these years, we thought this temple was built by our earliest ancestors. Now we know they built it after they arrived from Earth." Ril walked up to them. The former Shirani leader looked different now. His silver robes were simpler, and his face was softer. "The temple holds more secrets," he said. "Will you help me understand them?" Juwoo smiled and nodded. In the past weeks, Ril had changed from their biggest enemy to one of their strongest supporters. He now led a team of young Shirani scholars who wanted to learn the true history. Inside the temple, Minho and Hiren were already working. They had connected their quantum scanners to the walls, and the ancient stones were beginning to glow with familiar patterns. "Look at this," Hiren said excitedly. She pointed to a series of symbols that seemed to move in the light. "It's not just writing. It's a star map, but it shows stars from Earth's sky. They must have made it to help them remember the way home," Juwoo said. She touched the glowing symbols gently. Even after finding a new home here, they didn't want to forget where they came from. A group of Shirani children had followed them into the temple. They were part of the new education program, learning both the old language and Earth's history. One of them, a small girl, pointed at a dark corner of the temple. "There's something moving there," she said. Everyone turned to look. In the corner, hidden by shadows for thousands of years, was a small black cube. As they watched, it began to hum and float in the air. "It's another message device," Minho said, checking his scanner. "Like the ones we found in the space station. But this one, it's complete. Undamaged." The cube floated to the center of the temple. Suddenly, the air filled with light, and a voice spoke in the ancient language. But this time, it wasn't just words. The light formed into shapes, moving pictures of Earth as it had been 100,000 years ago. They saw great cities under the ocean. They saw ships that could sail between the stars. They saw the rising waters that forced their ancestors to leave, and the brave people who made the long journey to find a new home. "All this time," Ril whispered, "we thought being first made us special. But our true story is even more special. We survived. We kept going. We found a new home. And now we can share both worlds," Kay added. She looked at Juwoo. "Your people kept Earth alive and beautiful. Our people kept the memory of the journey. Together, we have the whole story." Later that day, they held a ceremony in the temple. Humans and Shirani stood together as Juwu and Ril spoke the ancient words that would officially open the first Earth Shirani Cultural Center. The building would be a place where both peoples could learn from each other. 100,000 years ago, Juwu said to the crowd, "Our ancestors looked up at the stars and made a hard choice. Today, we look at the same stars and make an easier choice to remember our shared past and build a shared future." The children, both human and Shirani, released small floating lights into the purple sky. Each light carried messages in both modern languages and the ancient tongue. As the lights rose toward the stars, they formed a bridge of light between the temple and the sky. "Look," the small Shirani girl said, pointing up. "The lights make the same pattern as the writing in the temple." Juwu looked up and smiled. The ancient language that had once divided them now lit up the sky, bringing them together. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning again. 6 months had passed since the first discoveries. The great meeting hall of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Where once the Shirani had sat alone at the front, now they shared the space with humans. The two peoples had been given joint leadership roles, working together to guide the council into a new age. Today was special. Juwu stood at the speaking platform, looking out at the huge crowd. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had come to see the first presentation of recovered ancient technology. 100,000 years ago, she began, "Our ancestors left us more than just words. They left us tools to build a better future." Behind her, a large device floated in the air. It looked simple, just a silver ring about 10 feet wide. But inside it, lights danced like tiny stars. Kai stepped up next to Juwu. Together, they placed their hands on the ring. Human DNA and Shirani DNA working together, just as the ancestors had planned. The ring began to spin, and suddenly a doorway opened in the air, a portal through space itself. Through the portal, they could see Earth, not just images, but the actual planet, as if they were right next to it. The crowd gasped in amazement. "This is how they traveled," Minho explained to the council. "Not with ships, but by folding space itself. The technology only works when humans and Shirani work together, proof that our ancestors wanted us to find each other again." Dr. Han stepped forward. "Today, we officially open the first direct portal between Earth and the Shirani homeworld. But this is just the beginning." Ril, now wearing the simple robes of a teacher, spoke next. "We have found more ancient sites, both on Earth and our world. Each one holds new secrets, new technologies. But more importantly, each one tells us more about who we are and where we came from." The first group to use the portal was a class of children, half human, half Shirani. They walked through together, holding hands, excited to see each other's worlds. Their teachers, Hiren and a young Shirani named May, followed them through. Juwu watched them go, remembering how different things had been just 6 months ago. Back then, the Shirani had laughed at humans for being young and primitive. Now, both peoples knew they were part of the same great story. Later that day, Juwu sat in her office in the new Earth Shirani Institute. The walls were covered with pictures from both worlds, the underwater ruins on Earth, the ancient temples on the Shirani world, and new discoveries they made every day. Kai came in, carrying an old tablet they had just found. "Look at this," she said excitedly. "It's a message from the ancestors, written just before they left Earth." Together, they read the ancient words. "To those who find this message, you are not two peoples, but one family separated by time and space. Apart, you kept different pieces of who you are. Together, you can become more than we ever were. The stars are waiting for you." Outside the window, more portals were opening as people traveled between the two worlds. Ships from other species came and went, carrying visitors eager to learn from both humans and Shirani. The galaxy was changing, growing smaller and bigger at the same time. "What do you think they would say?" Kay asked softly. "Our ancestors, if they could see us now." Juwu smiled. I think they would be happy. Not because we're using their technology, but because we finally learned the lesson they wanted to teach us. What lesson? That true greatness isn't about being the oldest or the strongest or the most advanced. It's about remembering where you came from and working together to build something new. As the 3 moons rose over the Shirani world, their light shone through the portals and mixed with Earth's sunlight. In that mix of light from 2 worlds, humans and Shirani walked together, no longer separated by pride or fear, but united by the greatest discovery of all, that they had always been family.